In the summer of 1853, a ship arrived at the port of New Orleans, carrying passengers from the Caribbean. Within days, people in the neighborhoods near the docks started developing fevers. Within weeks, the fever had spread across the city. Within months, roughly 12,000 people were gone. The bodies came so fast that the city couldn't process them. Coffins ran out. Gravediggers couldn't keep up. The dead were left in homes, on porches, and in the streets until someone could collect them. That was just one summer. It happened again and again for decades. And that's only the beginning of what New Orleans never told you. Yellow fever arrived in New Orleans repeatedly throughout the 1800s. The disease was carried by mosquitoes, but no one understood that at the time. Doctors burned tar in the streets and fired cannons into the sky, thinking the concussions would clear the atmosphere. The 1853 epidemic was the worst single year, but the disease returned in 1854, 1855, 1858, and 1878. In total, yellow fever took over 100,000 lives in New Orleans across the century. The poorest neighborhoods were hit hardest, particularly the Irish Channel, a dense, working-class community devastated multiple times. People avoided New Orleans entirely during summer. Those who couldn't afford to leave stayed, and many didn't survive to see the fall. The city earned the nickname Necropolis of the South. Jean Lafitte was a pirate, a smuggler, and possibly the most important military figure in the defense of New Orleans during the War of 1812. He operated out of Barataria Bay, running smuggled goods throughout the Gulf. When the British approached in 1814, they offered Lafitte a commission to fight on their side. He refused. Instead, he brought his men, weapons, and knowledge of local waterways to General Andrew Jackson, who used them to win the Battle of New Orleans in January 1815. It was one of the most decisive American victories of the war. Lafitte was briefly celebrated. Then, he was forgotten. He returned to piracy, left Louisiana, and disappeared from the historical record. No one knows where he went or how he ended up. His grave has never been found. The man who helped save the city was erased from its memory within a generation. On Royal Street in the French Quarter, there is a building where a man known as the Comte de Saint-Germain reportedly lived in the early 1900s. According to legend, the Comte was a figure who appeared across European high society during the 1700s, spoke multiple languages, claimed to be centuries old, and never seemed to age. He surfaced in records across France, Germany, and England over decades, always looking the same. When a man matching his description appeared in New Orleans, the rumors followed. Neighbors said he was never seen eating. He hosted gatherings until dawn, but was never spotted in daylight. When he vanished, no records of his departure were filed. Several owners of the Royal Street building have reported finding bottles in the cellar containing a dark liquid that was not wine. The Comte is considered one of the foundational figures of New Orleans vampire mythology, and unlike the Casket Girls, his legend is tied to a specific address people can still visit. Congo Square, now part of Louis Armstrong Park, is one of the most historically significant sites in American music. During the era of slavery, it was one of the only places in the country where enslaved people were permitted to gather on Sundays. They brought drums, songs and dances from West Africa, the Caribbean, and their own evolving culture. What happened in Congo Square laid the groundwork for jazz, blues, gospel, and rhythm and blues. But the square was also a marketplace where enslaved human beings were bought and sold. The same ground where people created some of the most important music in American history is the same ground where people were sold as property. New Orleans renamed the park and put a statue up, but the two histories of that piece of land exist on top of each other, and neither one cancels the other out. The St. Roch Chapel was built in 1876 by a German priest named Father Thieves, who made a deal with the saint during a yellow fever epidemic. He promised to build a chapel in St. Roch's name if none of his parishioners perished during the outbreak. According to the story, none of them did. The chapel was built, and people began visiting it to pray for healing. Over the decades, those who believed they were cured began leaving something behind. The room beside the chapel is filled with offerings: prosthetic legs, glass eyes, leg braces, crutches, plaster casts of feet and hands, and small anatomical models of hearts, lungs, and other organs. The walls and floor are covered with the things people no longer needed after they prayed there. Whether you believe in miracles or not, standing in a room full of discarded body parts left by people who believed they were healed is one of the most unsettling experiences in New Orleans. Holt Cemetery is unlike any other burial ground in the city. It was established in 1879 as a cemetery for the poor, and unlike New Orleans's famous above-ground tombs, Holt buries its dead in the earth. The problem is the earth. New Orleans sits below sea level, and the water table is inches from the surface. Graves at Holt sink. The soil shifts. After heavy rains, caskets rise and remains surface. The grounds are maintained by the families of the deceased, not the city, and many plots are marked with handmade signs, wooden crosses, and personal belongings: teddy bears, photographs, beads, and bottles. Some graves are decorated lavishly. Others have sunk so far that the markers are barely visible. Holt is the burial ground New Orleans doesn't put on its ghost tours. It's not haunted in the way tourists expect. It's just a place where the ground won't hold the dead, and the living do everything they can to keep them remembered anyway. Charity Hospital is a massive Art Deco building on Tulane Avenue that has been abandoned since Hurricane Katrina in 2005. For over 270 years before the storm, it served as the primary hospital for the uninsured and poor, making it one of the oldest continuously operating public hospitals in the country. When Katrina hit, patients and staff were trapped inside for days without power or running water. After the evacuation, the building was closed and never reopened. It still stands, 20 stories of empty corridors and patient records left where they were. Plans to redevelop it have stalled repeatedly. For 2 decades, it has sat, locked and empty in the middle of the city. A building that spent 2.5 centuries keeping people alive, shut down in a single week and never allowed to open again. Part 1 showed you the ghosts and the legends. Part 2 is what's left when the legends stop. Yellow fever that emptied neighborhoods. A pirate who saved the city and vanished. A cemetery the rain won't leave alone. And a hospital that has been holding its breath for 20 years. Subscribe if you want to see the darkest secrets about Boston explained next. And tell me in the comments which part of New Orleans disturbed you the most. I'll see you in that video.